If self-hatred fixed you, I'd be the healthiest man alive. What's up? I'm Joe DePierce Morrison. This is my YouTube channel. Today we're talking about self-hatred, self-forgiveness. So the truth about self-hatred is it's not going to fix you. It just keeps you chained to a version of yourself that you don't like. You know, for me, my self-hatred tied a lot into my addiction, into my depression, you know, the way that I've thought about and treated myself for years. And it's a lot to unlearn because you think that when you hate yourself for your mistakes, that it's somehow gonna fix you because you're never gonna forget what you did wrong. You know, you're never gonna forget how you made other people feel, maybe how you made yourself feel. That's not really the case. When you put that much energy into not liking yourself, it changes the way you think about yourself to the point where it's like you'll keep yourself in negative things because you think you deserve it. For me, it wasn't the only reason, but it was a big contributing factor to why I stayed in an addiction for a very, very long time. I felt like I was this horrible person and I deserved it, and there was, you know, this voice deep down inside of me that I just felt like I deserved to be miserable all the time, you know? And when I would do things, partake in activities that made me feel horrible, like I felt like I deserved it. If you want to heal, that's the exact opposite of what you want to be doing. So I'm not gonna like dumb it down and say it's the only reason for that. It's not that simple. But the principle of self-hatred, that whole thing I just explained, still applies. And it doesn't, you don't have to have an addiction to feel this way. You can feel it with depression, life choices, maybe the way you grew up. There are many reasons people might not like themselves. In order to move on and heal, you have to learn to forgive yourself. And that can be very hard. Because self-forgiveness is a discipline. It's an active choice that you have to make every day, because when you make the choice to forgive yourself and to learn to love yourself, you're not just undoing how you felt recently. You know, it's not like, you know, you wake up today and you're like, oh, I want to work on this, yay, and then you snap your fingers and it's over. It's like, no, you have to go back and unlearn potentially years of how you've talked to yourself. But it's worth it. You get to feel secure in yourself. You get to love yourself. And forgiving yourself doesn't mean that you just excuse, you know, what happened. For me, it doesn't, you know, I'm not excusing my addiction and the damage that did to me and my life and the people around me. So when it comes to forgiving yourself, you got to make it a habit, and it has to be an active effort every day. For me, that started with realizing that I'm not going to get into this fully right now. I didn't really have a childhood. Like, I didn't have a good childhood. I never really had the opportunity to be a kid. So something that really helped me heal was reconnecting with my inner child. So I take about an hour every single day, and this is the greater lesson of being genuinely kind to yourself. You know, you have to be the one to do it. And so what I do is I'll fire up video games that I loved as a kid, you know. Lately, I've been playing a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog games because I love time trials. They're fun. And then I'll make myself a snack that I loved as a kid. Sometimes I'll go, you know, grab some candy, and then I'll make some apples and peanut butter. And then for at least an hour at the end of my day, I'll just play video games and let myself be a kid. But it's also something that makes me feel genuinely loved from myself. And like I said, it's a discipline. You have to make time for this stuff every day. You have to be willing to forgive yourself. I personally believe you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I forgive you. It sounds silly, but it works. Because the way you talk to yourself matters, you know? It's like if you've been telling yourself these horrible things for however long you've been telling yourself these horrible things, you believe them. So then it stands to reason that when you go tell yourself positive things, you'll believe them. So when you start looking in the mirror and saying, hey, I forgive you, I love you, it's not like that where you're just like, oh yay, like I'm all good. It's like, no, it takes time and it takes repetition, but it will get you there. And then how do you build the discipline into your day? I mean, it's just, like I said, practice. You just decide that you're going to do it, and you're going to do it. For me, it took many years before I realized I don't like living like this. I don't want to hate myself. I hate feeling miserable all the time. It's uncomfortable. Like, to be honest, like, loving yourself at first is very uncomfortable because you're not used to allowing yourself to feel good, because if you hate yourself, you feel like you deserve to feel bad all the time. And I'm saying that because I've lived it, I know what it's like. And also, take the time to think about, why do I feel like I have to be this hard on myself? Where does that wound come from? And what hurt part of you is speaking to where you feel the need to hate yourself? You got to figure out where it comes from as well. And if you can afford it, you should do this stuff with a therapist. If you can't, you just got to start with being honest with yourself. And then another thing important to remember too, when forgiving yourself, that doesn't mean you forget. It's like, if you hate yourself because you hurt people, because of the way you've acted in the past, because of this or that, you don't have to forget that stuff. For me, like, part of the reason that I hated myself, like I said, my addiction, the way I treated people, there's a lot that went into it. I don't forget how that felt, but I also don't let it define me, because I've grown a lot as a person since then. And ultimately, when you hate yourself, you're just chaining yourself to a version of you that you don't like. And when you want to grow, you have to let go of that person to become who you want to be. And that's the other part of it, is think about who you want to be and how can you get there. If you want to be a kinder person, you don't want to hate yourself, you got to look at what you got to do to get there. Everyone's starting point is different. Everyone's timeline is different. And everyone's process is going to look different. What some people might think, the fact that I play video games for an hour at the end of the night and let my inner child out, some people might think that's stupid. Some people might think that's the greatest idea they've ever heard. That's just what works for me. Ultimately, you have the potential to know yourself better than anybody. And if you really just take that time to sit with yourself, you'll figure out what you need to do. And those things that I mentioned, again, if you can afford to work with a therapist on this stuff, I would highly, highly recommend that you do that. If you can't, you just got to be honest with yourself and commit to the change that you want to see. And I want to make a disclaimer. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a guru. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just a guy who's lived through a lot of things, and I'm still here to talk about it. Ultimately, I want to use my platform to help people. I talk about a lot of stuff on my channel. This is the first longer video that I've made in about 6 weeks, just because I've had a lot going on in my personal life. But I want to get back to this because I like doing it. So if you like this video, there's a lot more here. I talk about, men's mental health, addiction, sobriety. I got a lot of topics that I want to get into that I haven't even scratched the surface yet. If you have any suggestions, or if you like the way that I speak, whether you know me from TikTok or YouTube Shorts, drop a comment. I'm always open to hearing what other people want to hear me speak on, because if it ultimately helps other people, that's what I'm here to do. Like I said, I've lived through a lot. And there's a lot I want to get into. Yeah, if you vibe with this, hit subscribe, hit the little bell. If you think this could help you or somebody, feel free to share it, send them to them. I'm Joe Pierce Morrison. This is my YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in.